Hello there. Welcome to my campfire. My name is Seraphine, the Midnight Bard, and it's my job to travel from place to place, seeking the strange, the bizarre, and the unexplained. We've all wished we could turn back the hands of time. No one ever knows what life has in store until it is upon them. What's worse is that often the smallest of choices can bring about irreversible consequences. So, if given an option to remove a mistake from the past, one could be forgiven for taking a leap of faith. But you know what they say about things that seem too good to be true. I once crossed paths with a man who had one such opportunity. In a frail and tattered whisper, he said, "I received a gift from the Fair Mother Deisa." In the English countryside, in the country of Somerset, there is a small house. Ivy climbs its walls, and a smattering of decorative gnomes pepper the floor, like a little legion of guards that keep watch over the foliage. Potted plants are strewn throughout the front and back gardens, and a tree slumbers amidst a bed of flowers. Each year, I would make a pilgrimage to this house. I sought what many others still seek, the counsel of the Fair Mother Deisa. In droves, from the penniless and ragged to the pampered and regal, we clambered atop one another to tell our tales to Mother Deisa. Outside of her home, hundreds gathered around, each person calling for her to choose them. A crowd of hopeless, lost children begging an old woman from beyond the perimeter of her garden wall. Like lambs, we skittered and stumbled as we bounded around for her attention. "Please," we would call, "pick me!" Mother Deisa made her way through the crowd, pushing past the pleading paupers that pulled at her rags. She slipped past those with whom she did not desire to speak, casting them aside as she weaved through the waves of the kneeling, pleading, desperate people. Mother Deisa, hunched over, strode with a certainty past those that surrounded her home. With her presence drawing closer, I felt a lump in my throat. She stopped and pointed a finger towards me. I fell to my knees as Mother Deisa remained stood, unblinking, her crooked finger still pointed. Bells rang out through the village, and the grumbling crowd begrudgingly dispersed. Every year before this, I would have been leaving with them, cursing and wailing as they were. But I was frozen. This year, the Fair Mother Deisa had chosen me. Marcescent hands, barely skin on bone, held my trembling shoulders. The Fair Mother Deisa raised me to my feet. A hushed whisper she left upon my ear soothed my worrisome thoughts. I followed her past her garden wall, being careful not to disturb the array of vegetation and ornaments, and she guided me to her abode. Her little wooden door creaked and clunked, and we were eloped with darkness. I stumbled in the black of Mother Deisa's home, feeling the walls as I tried to follow along beside her. Before long, Mother Deisa lit a single candle that sat upon a table beside two armchairs. Impossible streams of wax ran down the length of the freshly lit candle. Beneath it was a small metal dish, bubbling with the melted scent that poured from the pale, tall stem-like candlestick. "Excuse me," I said, but the disapproving glare of Mother Deisa forbade me from continuing. Mother Deisa drifted downwards, setting herself deeply in her armchair. She extended an arm in gesture for me to follow suit. Little trinkets and pieces of jewelry hung from her weathered skin, swinging loosely as her arm came to a stop just beside the candle. I obliged and steadily seated myself in the adjacent chair. It was extraordinarily comfortable. I stared across at Mother Deisa. She stared back. Valleys lined her face, canyons and hilltops forming on her wrinkled skin. She held a cupped hand to her ear, brushing back her unkempt gray locks. Mother Deisa tilted her head to the side, her cavernous features illuminated by the glow of the still pouring candle. "Oh, of course," I stammered. "I seek your counsel, because, well, I need to change something."
"Go on."
Mother Deisa nodded. "I need a second chance. A do-over," I continued.
"Of?"
Mother Deisa asked. "Just, I don't know, everything. I messed up, okay?" I felt my leg jittering, making a repetitive tapping sound on the wooden floor.
"You need to be very specific, my child."
Mother Deisa leaned over the candle, her face orange under its glow.
"Or I cannot help you."
"But you already know. Why do I have to say it?" Leaning forward, I rested my elbows on her table.
"So you can come to terms with exactly what it is you are doing and why you are doing it."
I paused momentarily before Mother Deisa reached past the candle, grabbing my hand and pulling it towards her. She held my hand over the flame. It felt cold. I wish I hadn't been so lazy. My words catching in my throat, I was barely above a whisper. But I couldn't help but talk. When I picked up Abby from school, I could have walked. Abby always liked walking home instead of driving. I blame myself for the accident because I couldn't be bothered to walk my daughter home from school. I yanked my hand away from Mother Deisa.
"The flame brings out the truth,"
she said in a knowing way that only an aged woman could.
"So let us begin."
She lifted the candle from its dish, now full of that hot, bubbling wax.
"Take it."
She pushed the dish towards me, its contents sloshing both onto the table and onto Mother Deisa's skin. I went to pick it up, but pulled my hands away as my fingertips brushed against the iron. "Ow! Shit!" I yelled.
"Sacrifices must be made."
She slowly leant over and nudged the dish closer. Extinguishing the candle with her thumb and forefinger, her voice echoed into the darkness.
"Drinking."
I felt around in front of me for the dish, fumbling in the darkness. I met the smoldering iron with my hands again and pulled away once more. Bracing myself, now sure of the position of the dish, I slowly slid my hands along the table towards it. I gritted my teeth and grasped the sides of it, bringing it to my lips as quickly as possible without spilling the wax on myself. With watering eyes and cries of pain, the hot iron met my lips. My skin sizzled and my spit steamed as I tilted my head backwards and allowed the boiling wax to trickle down my throat. Only, it wasn't wax. It was an endless stream of little maggots wriggled past my teeth, burrowing into the roof of my mouth. Maggots that burned hotter than any metal, sliding down my throat, wriggling, burning holes in me.
Feel them, dear.
Mother Deisa stroked my face, taking the dish from me.
Don't they burn?
I trembled, feeling the burning and burrowing in my throat. The iron had peeled the skin from my fingers and lips. It made a gentle clang against the table as Mother Deisa placed it down.
Now, my child.
She shushed me.
Let them make their home.
The candle flickered as it was lit again, and the streams of wax began to pour once more. Under the dim light of the candle, I glanced across to Mother Deisa. Her skin, once weathered and wrinkled, was teeming with life. Maggots raced across the surface of her flesh, writhing, whispering in an ancient tongue.
Prepare yourself, dear.
Mother Deisa smiled, maggots worming their way out between her teeth.
You have a long feast ahead of you.
Dad, come on!
What? I opened my eyes.
Please, Dad, get up!
I sat up. Around me was wet, sticky, red.
Come on, Dad, please.
The same voice continued to call. A blonde girl was standing in front of me.
What happened?
Footsteps came thundering down the stairs.
I don't know, he just started drinking it.
The first voice cried.
What? Drinking what?
The second voice was behind me now, holding me upright.
The water out of the kettle. Oh God. Fucking hell. Abby, get my phone.
Abby. I realized that the first voice must have been her. And Kathy, my wife, she must have been the one holding me from behind. I slumped backwards into her arms and smiled as the world around me faded to black. The doctors and my family think I had a psychotic break, that I just stood in the kitchen drinking kettle water and fell over and hit my head. My mouth and my throat were badly burned. My daughter and wife sat by my bed, trying to reassure me. Looking at their faces, they were older than I remembered. I barely recognized either of them. Abby, my little girl, was a teenager, all grown up. My wife was in the same room as me and was, well, still my wife. I knew that the last 8 years of my life were spent in a dingy, one-bedroom apartment with mold growing on the wall. Everything around me suggested otherwise. A loving family. A company ID in my wallet for a job I didn't remember. Friends I had never met visiting me. They blamed the memory loss on my fall, doing a number of tests on me that I knew I didn't need. Eventually, I was discharged from the hospital. Kathy drove us home, and we arrived at a row of terraced houses. Our car fit snugly on the driveway, and the three of us made our way inside. A monochrome rug greeted us from the living room floor, and atop it sat a glass coffee table. Coasters were scattered about, some with coffee stains deeply soaked into their faces.
Dad!
Abby leapt from the sofa to hug me. I hugged her back. Abby! I held her tight, my head in her shoulder, her blonde hair falling over my face. I'm so glad you're okay, I rasped. It was tremendous effort to speak. I sounded like a smoker.
What?
She laughed.
I'm fine. I'm glad you're okay. Come on.
Kathy smiled, tapping me on the shoulder.
The doctor said you ought to get a lot of rest. I'll bring you up something to eat. All right?
Sure. Thanks. I released Abby. The stairs creaked as I took what I assumed would be the most obvious path to the bedroom. Somewhere upstairs, I thought. An open door caught my eye, and through it, I spied what was obviously a teenage girl's room. Quietly peeking through, I glanced around. Posters of people I didn't know lined the walls. Clothes were folded neatly atop a washing basket. A laptop was left closed on an unmade bed. In the corner, however, was a doll's house. It intrigued me. It didn't seem to be the sort of thing a teenage girl would proudly display. It seemed almost childlike. I thought it right to take a closer look. Upon a desk, in the corner of my daughter's room, was a doll's house. Painted ivy climbed its walls, and a smattering of decorative gnomes peppered the ground, like a little legion of guards that kept watch over the plastic foliage. Potted plants were strewn throughout the tabletop, and a tree slumbered amidst a bed of flowers. A noise came from inside of the doll's house. My fingers brushed against the exterior, flecks of paint sticking to me as I tilted its walls on their hinges. The house opened up, and inside was a solitary doll. A wooden little girl, minimalistic in its level of detail. Strands of blonde hair flowed from her polished head. A sad face was painted. I picked up the doll, brushing my thumb along the hair that I now realized was real.
I'm sad, Daddy.
It said, in a voice that was more familiar than any I had heard in the past few days. Abby? What? I almost dropped the doll. Abby?
Yes?
The doll sobbed. Why are you sad?